start. When do we press start? Hey, okay, so this is it. We're talking to Leo. And Leo's our old buddy from way back in the day. And we go to Leo for every question we have. And he has every answer. So welcome to our show, Leo. How about you go ahead, if you don't mind, introduce yourself, then we'll just get on with the hilarity.
Let's do it. But before I say that, I think it's been 16 years since we've since we first met, right?
Wow.
JWT days. Well,
so, not to get creepy, but your shoulders, like, they probably still are, but they were jacked, man. They were.
Thank you. Oh no, I'm still there.
Look at you, guns galore.
Fixed. I got to say, it's a privilege to be asked to be on a podcast show, whatever, with you all. As I mentioned, I met you all 16 years ago now. You were all mentors. I was like a little egg, little guppy coming out. Like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. My hair all spiked up. Remember all that?
I do. I
remember you sat around the corner from the elevators there, and I'd go by and give you noise whenever I walked by your desk and stuff.
Yep. But yeah, so just for the people to know a little bit about me, how do I explain myself? I explain myself in a couple of different ways. I like to say I am a problem solver. I'm passionate about business, passionate about people, and kind of like the way I started my life was like, think about like the gold rush. I was looking for the golds, working at agencies, trying to find cool campaigns and optimize campaigns for different brands. And then I'm like, I need to go sell the shovel because A, there's a heck of a lot more money. B, I get to support other people. And then C, I just have more fun, right? So I went over to the technology side of things. So the technology that I was using actually on the agency side, I went and I started working there, did that for a little bit. And now for the last few years or so, I kind of do both. I work in technology, I do marketing, I do sales, I teach. That's pretty much me.
Yeah, bro, we always know you're on the cutting edge. That's the thing that whenever I see Leo, in my head, there's two things I think of. There's one friggin' smiling dude, because every time you'd walk by, like, there'd be some terror at the agency. You'd be like, how's everything going?
Yeah, he didn't care.
Right? And then also always on the cutting edge of whatever. So we'd always, if we didn't know something and we wanted to know what was going on, we'd just be like, Leo, what up with that? And that's kind of like why one of the reasons we wanted to chat you up about the AI stuff, because we've been noticing you've been posting AI up the wazoo.
Yes.
And we've been into it, like our workflow junk. It's a little trickier. Like, I mean, if you guys don't mind me just jumping in, and then
before you go into it, I wanted to just say that we do have our own AI that differentiates as animal intelligence. Go ahead now, Jeff. You can continue now. That's trademark.
Right. Well,
con.
That's 100% right. Like, our AI is still not. AI can't really take that over as much as it can, like writing a script or writing some copy or showing up with some images and junk. Because what we noticed is you still have to manage your life with all the tiny little changes that happen. You have to be in charge of it. If you are the only person in your life, then you can just have AI schedule you and answer questions for you and all that kind of stuff. But usually, like, I'm thinking back in the day, an ops guy or project management or whatever, you get all the friggin' creative directors and the account people trying to get them in the room, and one of them, you got them all in there except the one guy's like, I changed my mind, don't want to do it. And it's like, hey, AI, where were you? Why are you coming out here?
AI can't help you on that. Nope. That one.
But it can help you with a bunch of junk. Like, I've seen some good stuff. My phone does that junk. I click answer the phone for me, and it's like, hi, this is Google Services. That jackass can't talk to you right now. What do you want to say to him? You know. And
part of this is that, Jeff, you've made this point several times, and then Leo, we're going to shut up and let you talk. But AI has been with us for quite a while now. Everybody's jumping on the old bandwagon right now, but basically we saw it creep into Google products. We've seen it everywhere. You know. Yeah.
And the foundation of AI goes decades back, right? Even though like a couple of decades ago when AI was playing Jeopardy and IBM, Watson and all that, right? So AI has been around this. It's actually part of us every single day, whether you, like you said, Jeff, you're talking to your assistant, or even you're on Netflix trying to pick the next movie, or the next movie is being served to you, right? That's all AI in one way or another. Google is using AI to serve you the most relevant ads, the most relevant searches, so on and so on, right? So it's kind of all around us. I think before we kind of jump into even like the workflow perspective or any other perspective, I think we need to take a little bit of a step back and think about different AI solutions or models or implementations, let's say, right? Just for the sake of like the podcast and making it super easy, let's look at like two main uses. So there's what you are kind of describing, which is like the large language models of, let me have a conversation with you and kind of write a script and all that kind of good stuff. But then there are like the more purpose-driven models that are hyper trained to do one thing, right? So that could be analyze certain images, that could be help me find a new medicine, right? Or help me discover what is important from this analytics, and it's perfectly trained based on your information and specifically for what you want it to do, right? So I think AI is not just synonymous with like, let's talk to it and all that kind of good stuff, but that's what's making it popular now.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
Totally.
That part where it's just focused on the one thing, and it like just goes and kicks its ass. It's like, all right.
That to me seems like, I read somewhere where it's comparing, medical diagnoses from one thing to the next, and then it can go places the human mind can't quite get to so quickly.
100%.
Pattern recognition and so forth. Yes.
Yeah, and maybe less sexy, but like even in manufacturing, right? As your produce gets developed and like cherries go on a conveyor belt, the ones that aren't the prettiest sometimes get kicked out, or especially if there's mold or something like that. Vision AI is actually looking at these, and like there's a tool that says, this one's not good, 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 right? So that's just like one little simple tool that's a repetitive thing that you have to pay someone to do, that they wouldn't be as efficient, they'd get tired and all that. So that's a big aspect of AI that's happening right now on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
Probably more than this large language models kind of stuff, like, because people don't really understand it. They don't know how to include it into their workflows. So I'd say like AI is all around this based on like the examples we gave for your phone, or examples we gave for Netflix, and manufacturing and science and things like that. That's probably where AI is being used the most. But that doesn't necessarily touch like my life day to day, right? Or our cousins, brothers, sisters, cousins, chickens, goats, every single day. Yeah, I figured you're like in a fairy tale kind of land nowadays, Jeff, with your background there. So I figured it makes sense with the animal intelligence too.
Totally. Yeah, we got chickens, we got all kind of animal intelligence. Well, I think it'll be funny when it can sense your emotions from your behavior.
Yes.
That's when I think it's going to be super rock and roll, and you'll have all the robots doing all that junk, being like, brah, you look sad today, brah. And you'll be like, I'm not sad.
I like that it says brah.
Yeah.
Why not? I think the funny thing is, today AI can do that. The thing is, we have narrow AI, right? Like there are different tools that do specific things. Like let's compare it to us as humans, right? We could see, we could hear, we could think, we could feel, we could touch, right? But right now that is all separated. There's a tool that 100%, I've seen it the other day, that looks at emotions and this person's happy, this person's sad, this person's this person's that, right? 100% does it. There's another tool, like you said, could go ahead and answer the phone for you and have a conversation. There's another tool. The problem is they're not all together. So we have
the point in bringing them all together, though, that's where one would have to be very careful, right? Because the idea that the doomsday prophecy of AI taking over mankind,
like activate in the real world, right? Being on the internet, it could be dangerous enough and cause a heck of a lot of unimaginary kind of issues. But when it manifests into the real life, like controlling a drone or a plane or whatever, maybe, that's like a whole other thing now.
Well, you know what? I just thought of this because you made me think of it. I'm thinking if AI gets really good, then I would maybe think that it wouldn't want to blow up all the humans, because it would start thinking like the humans, being like, bruh, I'm not going to be messing. That's just too much mess. I don't want to deal with all that junk. Instead of saying all the humans must perish because they're destroying the planet. Meow, 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 meow. But I'm not scared of it yet.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily scared. I think we might, as a society, go through some maybe growing pains as any technology. Like for instance, what happens when autonomous driving happens, and truck driving is a huge industry, a huge employer, and especially for someone who may not necessarily have an advanced degree. Someone can easily make $150,000, $200,000 being a truck driver. What happens if that goes away, right? What happens when deliveries go away, right? So there might be some
paralegals, they're paralegals, research. There's just anything that can be, hoovered up like that.
Maybe, and I don't know enough to probably even, I'll be armchair experts on this side of things, but even for truck driving, right? You could argue that's a tough job. I don't know if you ever talk to a truck driver.
Oh my God,
they go to the bathroom. They have buckets when they go to the bathroom because they need
keep
to
their eyes open for that long. I mean,
they got to keep their eyes open right now. Yeah, there are actual pieces of technology right now. There are cameras in the truck driver's vehicle where they'll see if they're falling asleep and all that kind of good stuff.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
You could debate whether the big brother or whatever, all that kind of good stuff. But also, it's like, hey, you're falling asleep. Hey,
it could be. There's benefits.
Well, kind of to both your guys' points, what I'm seeing, again, this is the positive outlook of all this stuff, is I'm seeing a gradual, don't get me wrong, it's not like instantaneous.
Sure.
It's sort of a gradual ease into people actually doing something they are good at or they like.
Yeah.
Or they can be a genius at.
Yeah.
I personally think everybody's a genius at something or more than one thing.
Or passion.
They don't get the chance to do it. It's like, oh, we gotta have you ring up somebody over at the thing, and that's what your job is. So you gotta do it. But now it's kind of like AI does that junk. I'm gonna go be a friggin' rocket scientologist or something like that and blast off.
Yeah.
And the timing of it is such, the popularity of it, should you say, or its moment, comes right on the heels of the pandemic, and people's ideas about what their job is, what their home is, what their relationship with their work is all been blown up and being put back together. And now you've got this sort of like wind blowing in that has all this capability, which also adds a little bit of tons of excitement, clearly, but tons of I'm sure a lot of anxiety for people who do these things for a living.
Yeah, 100%. I think anything anybody says right now is all speculation. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right? I could sit here and tell you what I think, but at the end of the day, anybody and this is probably true to anything in life, anybody that tells you what's going to happen tomorrow or, the next 10 days or 20 years from now, take it with a grain of salt, right? So who really knows? And I think even, John, back to your point on who's training these models and such, I think one of the problems right now is that AI and these large language chat models are synonymous with open AI, and open AI is trying to be benevolent, is trying to have security around it, all that kind of good stuff. But there are probably thousands of other companies making this. Google's making this. Stanford was able to make a large language model for $800 that you could just download right now and train yourself. So what's stopping some rogue country from developing their own model and shit going crazy?
You are, Leo. You're the freaking
you're the
bro.
They're gonna watch this podcast and be like, you know what?
Freaking Leo's gonna freaking hook us up. He's gonna tell us how to take a picture on our podcast. He's gonna teach those rogue nations how to behave right.
I hope. Well, they'll see all three of us and be like, you know what? They make sense.
Well, it's so interesting because if you remember when they first released the Bing one.
Yes.
And then there was a New York Times guy who got into a conversation with it, and they started having a romantic thing, and that was so fascinating because it feels like it went beyond what its original sort of training and or remit, however you programming, whatever you want to call it. Except that maybe it didn't. The fact that clearly these inputs were in there. If you got that far, it was going to go there with you. And so then it stopped. And then of course they took it. They
stopped. Yep.
Yeah, they stopped it. So it's clearly controllable. So it's just interesting. It's interesting that either some programmers in there were having some fun, or I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah, I haven't followed the story 100%, but I did listen to a couple of follow-ups from journalists. Especially some of the big top tech. I love it. See, I think maybe if AI saw that strawberry, it'd be like, yep. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to pause the action.
Yeah, no, you didn't mean to distract us in any way.
All good. So the beautiful thing is
turning into a strawberry.
that could be like, it's that can turn into a whole other conversation though too, because Google's taking a completely different approach where they're kind of stripped it of its personality. But from my understanding, from what I heard, and I have no inside or knowledge of this, but I think that they did want it to have a personality, right? And sometimes that even comes from the marketing team too. Like, anytime the robot is created, it always has a little face on it or something like that, right? I'm not saying that's wrong or bad. If anything, I think having a personality actually helps you use it more, relate to it more, have more of an affinity for it, all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, whether that was on purpose or not at first, and
it's cool. It's interesting. Yeah.
Well, even on like my home thing, I'm not going to say it because it's going to start talking to me, but I got the Google,
Sure.
And I'll say something to it, whatever, and then I'll say thank you, and then it'll say something. I can program it to say something,
sure.
but I didn't, and it just, the most recent thing is, oh, just doing my job. And I'm like, oh no, it's just sad sitting up there just doing its job all the time, listening to me. And can you imagine the junk it listens to? But let me ask you this, Leo, since you kind of touched on it, what about the deep fake mess? Like, is that stuff AI junk, or does that not have anything to do with it? Or what's all that? What's happening, bro?
It's 100% AI, where it could study, hours and hours and hours of video from Tom Cruise, study Tom Cruise's voice, so on and so on, and then being able to map it to an actual virtual model and then produce a deep fake. Or for maybe those that don't know what deep fake is, it's almost like what you're doing right now. You're pretending to be a strawberry, but you're not really a strawberry, right? So it's taking someone else's personality and model and becoming Jeff, becoming Brad Pitt, becoming whomever. That stuff is scary. I mean, it's very scary. The most recent, I don't know if you all followed it, there were two major photos or group of photos that went viral. One where it was Trump getting arrested, and then one where it was
in the
exactly
one with white stuff.
The one with Trump, pretty much everybody who saw it was like, this is fake, right? Or they said it in the posts. The Pope one though, even me scrolling through, I'm like, that's real? Right? So
what was the Pope doing?
He was in this wild white getup.
Oh, so that
jacket.
Yeah.
Well, they also have that. My wife just showed me the ones where some politicians were kind of dressed in drag and stuff like that. And I think that was an AI. Did you see the Tom Cruise and Paris Hilton video?
No.
Where they were getting ready to go to like an event, and Tom's like, "We're going to be late," and I don't know if it was real but it said Tom, like hashtag deep Tom kind of thing, and I was like, "It's got to be deep fake stuff."
Yeah, there's a whole channel, a couple of social media platforms where there's basically just this person as Keanu Reeves doing stuff, and it, like right now, if you sat there and you studied it and you're like, let me look at this a bit more, you're like, something's weird off of this.
Yeah.
But if you're just quickly looking at it, you wouldn't know, right? Also, that's how it is now. Imagine a year from now.
Totally.
I think that's what people are forgetting. And one of the major things that I like to educate folks, or at least have the conversation about, it's not if this is going to happen or if that's going to happen, it's when, right? I had the privilege of being able to play with ChatGPT in the earlier versions, before ChatGPT, before GPT-4, before GPT-3, all that kind of good stuff. And about, let's say, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was using it, and I'd have to write some of my personal blogs or this or that, and I'd always have to go in there and kind of really edit it. Now, like, you could make it produce a piece of content and do minimal edits to it, right? Well, I've seen that progress. Give it another year. Like,
bro, first of all, I thought you said you were talking to Chachi. I'm like, Tony loves Chachi. He's that fucking guy, Scott Baio and shit. But I figured out you weren't. But then I was like, after seeing a bunch of your posts, actually, I started thinking about it, and I was like, oh, snap. So I went and asked my daughter, she's in high school. I was like, how many kids are using this junk just to write papers? Yeah. She's like, okay. Like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
What teachers? What are they going to be doing? They'll be like, is this a deep what? I don't know what's happening.
I don't know. As you all know, I just had a baby, so I'm thinking about this a lot more than I generally would, or even as my time as an educator. I have a very positive look at that. I think as an educator, as someone who went through the public school system here, that shit is broken, right? Like across all levels, right? I was teaching, I won't mention the universities, but I two big universities that people will know. There's lots that could be fixed across the board. And I think one of the things is that there's not the ability for teachers, because there's also not enough teachers and they're overworked and all that kind of good stuff, to really focus on the students. I'm hoping, and I've heard other people say this, so it's not just my original thoughts, that maybe the educational system will become more personal. So instead of having to write these long essays, right, they're going to go into a room. There's not going to be access to computers or anything like that. And they need to write just 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs. And there will be teachers that will be able to actually.
Back to the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bro,
So
that's a nice,
that's smart. Nice. That is smart. Like, in other words, remove the devices. Chat GPT now. Let's go. Yeah. You gotta do it. It's gotta come from your freaking brain and your carbon unit.
Exactly. But also maybe he's shorter, because you could get into that all day long, where like us making folks write like 10-page papers when they could write a 1-page paper, not really setting them up for business by any freaking means, right? And now, like, right,
classroom, the first thing is they got to shut the door, drop and give me 20 immediately before they even take a step. They're doing push-ups. Okay, we've got to instill some more discipline in our children. Okay, sorry, as you were.
No, please. But yeah, like, maybe it'll become more personal, right? It'll become more they'll get the attention. But the problem is not the problem. The thing, it can still be a supplement to education. When they leave, they could get that essay reviewed by the AI. They could have it checked. They could check the grammar, and it'll explain to them.
And like, also how one employs the tools. You know, you're going to want these tools are there for you in the workplace, in life. You know, your education. It's already, I see it with my kid, and you know, it becomes how you communicate it now and whatever, but it'll be on another level where you've got these very powerful tools, and you learn the benefits of them and sort of the limitations of them, and what it does to you as a human being, and whatever. In other words, a higher level of sort of understanding of this stuff needs to be taught to our children as well.
You got it. All this goes in, which I love, is more of a philosophy conversation than even a technology conversation, right? Like, and I know it's a matter of degrees based on scale, access, price, all that kind of good stuff. But what's stopping, Jeff, your daughter from paying someone to write her a paper, right? What's stopping you from hiring a tutor and helping her write papers?
Hey.
Right? Are you writing the papers for her, right? Whatever it is. Like, isn't that stuff happening today? Maybe not with you, Jeff, but, you know, that stuff is happening today, right? People are cheating.
True.
So I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying, like,
though, like one of the things that you leaked on one of your posts, because you're, like I said, you're cutting edge, man. So I go to Leo for the cutting edge, and I saw the cutting edge.
Good.
He leaked the freaking PowerPoint. Oh, take my doc and make it into a slide presentation, and I'm done. Like, can you imagine how many account people would be like, Leo, I will send you $8 billion because you just saved my life. You know, you just say I can go home instead of be here all night.
Yeah. You bring up, we could focus on that, but you bring up another point. I've talked to a bunch of friends, some of them using ChatGPT for work, and some using it just for fun. And they end up actually working more. Their production, their output has actually increased by, like, whatever, 50-fold, 20-fold. They're actually working more. So back to that philosophy kind of thing is like, what are you doing with the extra time? Are you spending more time with your family? Are you doing some push-ups? Are you hanging out with your friends? All that kind of good stuff. Or are you just now like, I could create 50 decks, and I could just create decks all day long, and I'm going to spend the next 10 hours creating decks.
But that's, like, a really good point, that it's something that used to be very time consuming. Research for a deck, for example, I need to find certain quotations, I need to find certain data to support my argument. It's not necessarily easily findable. You have to go look for a while and think about it in a way, and now then that information is instantaneous. So, you know, you're right. Like, then you have all this time, and then you start thinking about, okay, I've got all this information in front of me. You know, what am I doing with it? And, you know, it's just like,
then you take it and you try to massage it to fit whatever convincing argument you're going to be trying to make. But I guess it's good enough to actually do that kind of stuff too, is do its own massage.
to your point, Jeff, earlier, I think that it's your argument, it's your initial impetus. You have a task. This thing is just how you get the information is just quicker. It's not like the information is and maybe better. I don't know. You know?
Yeah. I think a good parallel for this is something that we've all lived through is email, right? Before we used to have to use the phone, fax machine, letters, whatever. We have email. Now we can instantaneously talk to people.
Yeah.
But I think email is one of the most broken things from a work-life perspective. Now, the more emails I answer, guess what? The more emails I get back. I get to email, it's a inbox 0, which people want to get. That just means people get back to me faster, right? And then now I'm answering emails all night long. Like, I'm actually creating email, which was replacing mail and faxes and all that, which made me better. Now I just consumed your life.
I'll never forget the day I got 2006, I think, the day I got a BlackBerry for work. They handed me a BlackBerry. And I thought to myself, my God, this is amazing. I can search the internet. I can do all sorts of crap on this thing. It's a free phone. I can call anybody I want on this thing, you know? Little did I know that I was being attached to the mothership for the rest of my waking life, you know? Yeah. And I mean, that's the incredible thing. Like it fundamentally changed everything, didn't it? You know?
Yeah. Well, I think that's sorry, Jeff.
No, you go ahead.
As I was thinking, like, but that's where becomes more of a philosophy kind of conversation. Like, this is based off of our culture of society, of us overworking and always got to be working and always hustling, and this hustle culture kind of thing, right? Like, if you're not working, you're not getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning and creating 50 decks with your AI, whatever. Like, what are you doing while you're doing push-ups?
Right,
you know, because John, my dad, made me do it as soon as I walked in before I could even write a report. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
Yeah. Well, like, there's that. I think at least what John and I are focusing on with our stuff is we're all about efficiency, right? Yes. So it's not, we want to do fulfilling things in our life. And the people who are our clients want to do fulfilling things. Their fulfilling things are not chasing emails. That is the last thing. They don't want to be sending an email that they just got forwarded from 100 different other places that doesn't even
what's going on.
Sense. Yes. And they spend the day trying to figure it out while they're getting pinged on some other thing and they're getting other emails. We're talking to people exactly like what you just said, Leo, it's way more philosophy at this point. It's great because now it goes back full circle to what fulfills you. You have all this other crap that can handle the busy work. You don't even need to have anything handle the busy work. Just stop the busy work.
Yeah, 100%.
And focus on the stuff you're really good at, you're really interested in. You know, there's so many people we talk to who go, I don't even know what I like. And that's just sad. And it's great if they can take not a minute, but some time to chip away at it and figure it out, because then everybody's scratching each other's backs, basically. Everybody, somebody who doesn't like cleaning toilets will get the person who likes cleaning toilets to do it. It's not a whole big, hey, that's my job and I'm going to get beat up if I don't do it. It's more of a philosophy of let's focus on what's important.
Yeah. I think to be a bit pedantic, so I am sorry.
Pedantic
is AI would modify a bit more of like, forget about what people are good at. It's what they want to do, right? Like you said, if they want to, I may not be good at painting, but I love painting. So I should be able to focus on that.
I could give you some tips too. You could be good at it if you really wanted to do it.
By numbers.
I'm not, afterwards we could talk about it. I could give you some tips if you really want to do it, bruv.
Of course. And then, the flip side of that, people, again, back to from a society perspective of like, what are they doing with that extra time? I think that's, the companies, I guess, I don't know. I'll ask the question for you all. I'm sure maybe, I don't know who your clients are or your key decision makers are within an organization, but let's imagine that they're mid-level managers and not necessarily leadership. Are they necessarily thinking about like the psychology or the impact of the amount of workload of how all this is impacting them? I would say maybe not, but maybe senior leadership is thinking like, they're thinking 10, 50, not 50, but like, 5, 10, 20 years from now, I'm like, how will the workforce be impacted, right? So like, who's really thinking about, I don't know. Yeah, there's a pointed question there, but like, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good question. And I think at least with the people who are the grunts, who are in the weeds, who are in the just trying to pump the work out and make sure everybody's getting stuff done and they're trying to be focused on doing the work and all that kind of stuff, it's going to directly help them, the AI and or the workflow software that uses some intelligence will be very helpful for them to keep everything straight, to keep it on task, all that kind of junk. It takes a little bit of extra time away from them having to chase so much, which is what's so great about a lot of the software that's out there, is they're just not going to be chasing so much. So the people in the weeds, say if you're project manager, you'll be able to track things better, keep on top of stuff better, locate assets, all that junk. If you're a creative person, you'll be able to actually quit reading all the stupid emails that make no sense and just actually come up with some copy or some art or something, whatever the hell. And like what you're saying about the big bosses and all those kind of guys, who knows what they're going to be thinking other than hopefully fulfilling their life somehow better and increasing the whatever they want to increase profits or whatever the heck for the company. It's all kind of a positive.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if we can say that the effects of this have trickled down yet in terms of, do you know what I mean? Because
they have not.
You know, I think what we encounter more is the opposite, which is that the same old stuff is going on at companies that have been going on for 20 years since email. You know, the same chain of, if anything, it's gotten worse. And you know, this is one of the things that Jeff and I really, you know, the core of what we're getting at, which is that we really should be making progress here. Like we've had all these tools for a while, and people have, you know, but people continue to work in the same sort of siloed way that, and it's using email and so forth. And these things can actually, there are actual methods that make it better and make it better for your mental health and make it better for your productivity.
That's the animal intelligence that we were talking about before.
So I think, while I agree with you wholeheartedly,
here comes John.
I think we need to consider who you are speaking with. If you're speaking with just today, if you're speaking to, let's say, the low-level copywriter or social media manager, and you show these tools, the first thing they're going to think, and I know this for a fact, they're thinking, am I going to be replaced?
Right.
Right. That's number one. Number two, if that person is using it today, I don't think they're going to be oh yeah, I'm using it. I used it to do my work, because they're not going to know how their friends, how most importantly, their managers.
The implications of it. Yes.
Exactly. So am I just telling my boss that I was, you know, that I cheated, or that
you're just showing how flash you are and how quickly you got that thing together.
Right. Maybe you'll focus on that, but you won't tell them how you did it.
Correct.
Right. Just human nature. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that they should lie. I'm not saying any of that. But human nature would be like, I'm not going to tell them, because my friend actually reached out to me and said, hey, do you have any examples of people in advertising, like copywriters and stuff, using it? I'd love to write for an article. I'm like, if they are, they're not saying it.
Yeah, no.
Well, the other thing is, you know, okay, so we're talking, the generic scenario is an agency or a mid-sized company, say, or a company with a staff and so forth.
Sure.
But think about small business wanting to do their own content or automate some processes or do some things.
Yes.
This is a supercharger, because it's almost like saying, okay, I've got a white collar worker who's working here for free for me right now.
Yeah. I'm going to do a little plug now. Maybe you didn't know any of this, but I've been developing something called Digital Marketing Agency in a Box, where I'm developing a suite of tools that people could go and actually get articles written for them, get SEO strategies, get social media posts. And I've been targeting it specifically for SMB and maybe even mid-sized kind of companies, right? Because of that, they don't have the luxury of being able to afford big agencies or any agencies, right? But they still need this. Or even within big organizations, this may be really important for you all, right? When I worked on Oreo, and I worked internationally with Oreo, maybe the US and the UK were like really big major brands. But when I started working with like the Brazil, Costa Rica kind of brand manager and stuff, those people were basically running a small business.
Yeah. How does that thing work what's it called? And then what do you have humans who you point things to get things done? Or are you using some of the AI stuff, or is it a mix and match? What the heck is it? What's it all about?
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's digital marketing agency in a box.
That's what it's called.
That's what
So
it's
you
called.
can Google
Yes.
it right now and junk like that.
It launched, but it may not be up on Google right now.
Right
It
on.
launched probably like a day ago. Soft launch.
Whoa.
And so I definitely see it as disrupting. And yeah, it's not using humans at all. It's all using those large language models to be able to interpret what you need and spit out all that. But you know, we don't have to focus on the plug there. But as far as like, that's just showing that it is like, you know, eventually it might get so good that that person's like, I'm just going to continue to use this, right? Like,
Well, that's the dude. Here we go again with the cutting edge junk. Like, you're using it, it's there. You're putting the pieces together to make it a consolidated format that people can just jump in and bang out junk. I think that's super rad for like people who, like John was saying, like the small business folks who can't even make a logo and they can't really afford a designer.
Yeah,
You know, like, can I get a logo?
It feels like this it's been going in this direction. You know, you've got like a Canva that has basically a non-designer can go in there and is confronted with every conceivable preset and prefabricated image known to man, and so easy to interact with it. So all of a sudden you've got a beautiful looking PowerPoint or video or what have you. And the next step is that you don't even have to bother moving the stuff around. You can tell some bot to do it for you. You know,
Canva has that. They just released their AI attachment to their tool that does pretty much that. Not to the full extent, right? But pretty much. But I think to go back to asking you all from like a workflow perspective, right? Like if you're speaking to the lower level person, maybe they don't necessarily want to say that they're using it, or they might be leery about using it. But if you're talking to the middle manager or the senior leadership manager, they want to probably use this. The question is though, if they think my staff now takes an hour to do something that would take 8 hours, are they just going to try to fill in their hours with more work? Or they're going to be like, why do I actually have to pay you as much? Right? Like that's the scary part of what's happening now.
Yes. Well, this. I mean, if you look at any organization and with a different mix of skill sets, this ends up coming into play on some level. I mean, you know, you get a certain amount of work in, and all of a sudden you realize that these three people can get it all done. So these three people, now what are we doing with them? So we either have to find something to do for them or what have you.
Yeah.
And it's the same idea here where you know, time, all of a sudden the quotient is changing, the time is changing, the skill sets are changing, and this is business. So I think what you're saying, Leo, essentially is that the old corporate model will start breaking down into some other sort of model that can accommodate these things, right? Because you're not going to be a worker who's got it, you know, turned off for 3 days and then turned back on for 3 days or something, and unless, you know, it just becomes a different combo, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it's been happening for a few years where it's that whole gig mentality where instead of getting the staff job, you gig it. So you need a copywriter for some stuff. They'll do that project and they'll roll out someplace else. So like to both your guys' points, it might just be fine. It all depends on what the company's looking for. Do they just want to bang out some AI copy and done with it, be happy with it? Or do they want to nuance it a little bit and have the human touch? We should make a company called Somebody. And so just someone else Somebody, and Somebody handles it.
Don't release this until we could get the LLC, the domain name, and all that.
Oh, you think I haven't even done that already?
Somebody LLC.
I love it.
We must control the universal nature of
You don't have a robot? You don't have a robot avatar that you could hit?
Leo, I didn't want to plug here right now, but I actually am a robot. I'm not even like for real right about now.
It's completely fake.
I'm a total fake since I was born, bro.
Where are you coming to us from, Jeff? Santa Fe or Las Vegas or someplace like that? Seems like
some like Colombia maybe or something.
That's a good thing about being Somebody. I can go anywhere, anytime.
Anybody. There we go.
Jurassic Park.
Pirates of the Caribbean or something.
Yeah, I'm a kitty now. Oh wait, let me just do the kitty and then we'll jump right back. I know there's a kitty. Oh yeah, we go. Oh, come on.
The kitty on your head. No one expected that. I thought you were going to become the kitty.
That's
we go.
what I did.
That's a cat. It took me for a second to think that was a cat.
Yeah, but no, I think the whole thing with like replacing people's jobs and stuff, I think that'll work itself out. I think,
will.
remember the whole thing with Andrew Yang back in
Yeah.
the day was like with the
Universal basic
self-driving
income.
trucks, back to what you were saying, Leo, with the all that kind of stuff. I think it all will kind of, I don't know what the hell, like you just said, I really have no clue, but a positive spin on it all would be for the ChatGPT, whatever the hell it's called stuff. The kids in class will go in and write a couple paragraphs using a pen and paper. Other people will go and actually do something fulfilling to themselves and to the world. And that will become the new way of living. Look at me. I already know what I'm talking about. I'm a cat.
No, 100%. While I was focusing a little bit on the negative from just a philosophy conversation perspective, I believe what you believe. And that's where I wanted to land on too, because jobs just changed, right? Like, I mean, though it's happening at an extremely different scale, this is no different from people working in a factory and then all of a sudden there was a machine that did what they did, right?
Well, exactly. And you know, I remember I was thinking about this with my kid. She was 4 or 5. I'm thinking, you know, what's she going to do? You know, thinking about her education in the future. And what was already clear is that automation was just going to change everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the, she happens to have a creative bent, and who knows how she's 13, who knows what she's going to end up doing.
Sure.
But the idea being that you know, maybe you should be thinking about, you know, the one thing that the automation can't take, or the people can't take away from you, or the people who are ideating the automation, right? Or or who are creating art using the machines, or that person or that group of people who are, you know, doing that. That sort of could be the goal of a young smart kid, you know.
Yeah. No, certainly. There's a phrase that's been going around on the internet, and who knows how long this is going to be true. Yeah, but it says AI is not going to replace you. The person using AI as part of their workflow or as part of their tool set.
Well, exactly.
You see.
I mean, it can be scary to people who grew up in an analog world and don't want to understand these things. But once you're sort of in the digital world, I mean, I remember last year before, you know, everybody was talking about the metaverse a year ago. Now it's just gone.
Yeah.
But it was the metaverse, and Jeff was like, it's a video game. It's a video game, you know. And it's like, oh, is that what it is? Because I keep reading about it. It feels like I'm about to step into the future and not be able to come back.
Yeah. I think that's another thing of like when though, right? I think that's just a technology challenge, right? Because there were bots back in the day, they were in the AIM AOL days, right? But they were like stupid. And it was like, this is a joke. This is ridiculous, right? Because it was just basically like analog, right? Like if Jeff said this, say that, if this, that, but like, right? Like, sure, when these glasses are, and it will happen, like when instead of these big Oculus kind of thing, I can just put on my contacts and then be in a virtual world. Maybe we will be working in the metaverse at that point.
Well, and that I think really is right now the barrier to this is that I'm an old man. I'm going to put a big horse's head over my my eyes and walk around and bump into the wall and stuff. You know?
Yeah, I would argue that even the folks that are developing all this don't want to do that. Like you can't be wearing this thing on your head all day long.
Dude, a pair of glasses, that's another thing, you know.
Yeah.
Well, check this out here. I'm going to derail the whole thing. So I'm thinking the original, the animal intelligence, the AI from back in the Dizzy, and you're all going to slap me, but there are folk tales and stories about how people used to travel using their minds. Like they wouldn't, like, I'm sure there's people who know way more about this than I do, but I've only been cursory knowledge of this stuff. But way back in the day, you could also smoke stuff and make you kind of get into the other places. But there's breathing techniques and there's all this kind of stuff. And it kind of takes you into like a metaverse type thing. Sure. And so you throw that little Oculus eye thing into your eyeball, and it's another way that your brain is going to be interacting with whatevs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I think you just made me think of something, so I'm gonna take it in a completely different direction.
Do it, bro.
You know, there's actually a program called Trip. I think it's 2 Ps on Oculus, which is basically focused on meditation, having these psychedelic kind of experiences. And there's a whole world of like digital therapeutics that are been proven and more are being developed to like help people with some of these. So you don't have to take ayahuasca. You don't have to do, your DMT, LSD trip. You just put on a headset and who knows what happens.
Well, see, that's just another way to experience. Like you just said, that's great. The only reason I'm stumbling so much is because I'm thinking, wow, okay, these a-holes are actually doing something cool.
Yeah. And exactly. I think the thing is, you tend to, what some of us who remember parts of the analog lifestyle with great nostalgia, there's also the part of it, which is that if I was born in the 19th century, I'd be dead by now because I'm asthmatic, and I would have had to take a horse to, here we go with the horse again, out to Arizona or someplace to live.
Exactly.
And I'd be dead, and so, there's the technology is with us, and it's incredible, and it's made everybody's life incredible.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean it completely has to come at the expense of the natural world or what you're doing or human interaction or whatever. And when it does positive things, it's just like great, But at the same time, I got into not an argument, but it's sort of discussion with friends about kids on social media and so forth. And it's like, there's a whole lot of data that says right now that girls on social media, no good, this is something that you can't just sort of say, well, it's just part of the digital experience. Bring them up,
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It's impacting lots of different folks. Yes.
So how far off topic have I brought us, Jeff?
No, I think this is all part of like the philosophy of it all, right? And like the human,
there we go.
Thank you for bringing us back in philosophy.
Leo reels it back in.
I don't know. I'm gonna take a stab at different points here. I don't know if the technology will ever really replace the natural world. Think about vitamins, right? Like vitamins are great for you, but nothing's as good as eating a piece of XYZ that has vitamin D because
the sun or whatever. Yes.
Yeah, right. Because it's not just the vitamin D. I can't think of a plant that has vitamin D in it right now, but let's say a plant that has vitamin D in it, it also has this other chemical and this other chemical, and it kind of mixed together. And when it comes in you, like that all kind of helps you grow. It's a whole food, right? Maybe it's a question of when too, but like just putting on your headset and pretending you're outside is not really going to help because you're not getting the vitamin D from the sun. You're not getting the fresh air. You're not getting all that. So like,
right. It can't replace it, but it can be part of the mix of your human experience in a positive way.
Yes.
Well, the funny thing is this is going to sound stupid too, is it is natural. Like how can it's a freaking thing that some dingle fritzes have created and they dig it out of their computer thingies with electricity. And it's it's a weird, I know it's weird to say it's natural, but I'm kind of believing it's more natural than not.
I've heard that there's a whole philosophy of like, people are living in the cities is not natural, but they're like the whole philosophy. I'm not necessarily saying I disagree, I would more disagree with you, Jeff, but like, we're natural. We invented cities. Cities are natural, right? How's that different than someone creating, I don't know, a hut under a canopy? Is that natural? I think it's all a matter of degrees. Right? Yeah. Like
totally. Its definitions change too over time.
Yeah, natural doesn't mean good, right? A cobra's venom is natural. I'm not sitting here drinking it.
Yeah, losing all my bald head hair on top of my brains is not good, but it's natural. Okay.
True. But now you can put on an avatar and forget about it.
This has been a pretty incredibly wide-ranging philosophical discussion, Leo. Jeff and I don't usually, we don't usually kind of, we're doing stuff like that more often, and you brought out the best in us.
Yeah, man. No, we go to Leo for this stuff.
This has been awesome. But if I could tie it back to the workflow,
please tie it back.
I think there's a couple of different ways the not so satisfying answer on a day-to-day. It's like, using AI nowadays is like incorporating like a keyboard into your workflow. It's just there, right? Like you're using a keyboard and mouse. That's the way, essentially, I think you should look at it, right? Like it's just part of the tool that you use. But more and more, if you're looking at it from a workflow perspective, is focusing on like those repetitive tasks or smaller teams having access to other people, right? Like if it is a team that only has a copywriter and not a strategist or whatever it may be, use that to fill a gap, right? But I think it's more of like it's a keyboard. I don't think about keyboard in my workflow process.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
Another
tool,
It's a
man.
very
It's just a tool.
sophisticated tool.
Yes. The other two, like you're talking about PowerPoint too. I think they call it Copilot, right? Or I've heard it called like a caddy. I like that. I like that kind of idea. Like it's just your friend, your buddy. I might ask you to look over a presentation for me. That looks really real. Like it actually looks pretty darn good.
Say something, Jeff, so the podcast audience can see you.
Aye, matey. Oh, tool. I use me hook as my tool.
This looks like it looks pretty darn good. At least if it was just the facial hair, I might be tricked.
Yeah, it's like that deep fake tool that I'm using for my workflow, bruv.
Exactly.
Well, I just thought of something because I'm such a pea brain, but in terms of workflow, just the way that AI can, as you were saying, Leo, earlier, it can analyze a bunch of footage, say, and pick out the guy with the red t-shirt for you.
Yep.
It could probably, if you're using Asana and Slack and your email and 2 other programs, and you've lost your file, maybe there's a way of, engaging AI to find it for you,
Yeah.
Somebody.
Yeah,
Somebody.
Like that could be a feature underneath your company.
We'll put it in the our fanny pack. We got to show our fanny pack.
Yes.
Can I have a fanny pack?
Oh, hex to the yaks. You can have the fanny pack. We'll show you the video, and then you could be like, bruv, I'm already using that on a spreadsheet. And
Let's
I'll
do
be
it.
like, cool.
Let's do it. I think, is there an opportunity for you all, right? Because like back to these purpose-driven kind of tools, like you look at someone's workflow, you see there's a gap, right? It doesn't have to be using ChatGPT. It goes back into like our initial conversation of like, oh, I see that you really need someone to do X, Y, Z. And then you just develop the model tool and you implement it into that workflow versus like, it's not so satisfying and be like, it's a keyboard, just use it. That doesn't help you all or even the company as much.
Well, I mean, I think, Jeff is really the expert at this. I should let him answer, but I think that's right. The idea is that we go in and it's always a custom solution for whoever we're working with, because the journey of the company we're working with is always different than the last one we did. The size of the company, the ambition of what they're doing, and then you go into the more granular detail of how they're working, and then you see what they're working with, and then you, like to your point, you find the gaps or you realize the redundancies or whatever it is. And yes, and to be able to, and Jeff does this, you automate certain processes already. But yeah, in the future, I think that some of this stuff would be cool to have AI doing some of it.
Yeah.
The trick is the agility of a thing to fill the gaps. Like pretend you find you go into a place, you find all the workflow and you find all the gaps, and it would be like, let's just use our imagination. You put it all on a dashboard map, kind of electronical map, and you draw where the gaps are and draw to where the things need to get filled in by what things. And then that magical AI dude could come in and just boop, boop, beep, bop, bop. And so right now we just come in and say, yeah, that's here's how you can handle that. But I'll tell you one funny thing that I've noticed recently is when I'm dealing with some of these people, a lot of them are super organized and they have really, really good tracking tools that they've developed themselves. And usually the issues that they're having are way more animal intelligence stuff, like how to communicate. Somebody's not really communicating. They're sending way too many emails, like to your point, Leo, or Slack the wrong way, or they're just saying shit the wrong. It's almost like, all right, let's sit down, everybody. Let's just chat about chat. Chat about like what's clear to other people. Imagine this. If you received a forwarded email that made no sense, would you enjoy that? Oh, actually, no. So I guess I'll stop doing that. It's that kind of conversation we're having a lot of.
But also, isn't there something that you encounter is that, yes, they're using sophisticated tools in a sophisticated way, but it's almost that employee is doing that, and then another employee is doing this, and another employee is doing that. In other words, everybody has their own way of how they're working and communicating.
Yeah. That's a really good point. It's not like a simple foundation that they're working off of, which is really the thing. It's back to the philosophy conversation. It starts with a real good, simple, strong foundation, which is simple. It's what makes sense, guys, instead of, geez, here's some software. I know I have to use it. And look at all
Yeah.
these buttons I can press. Think, think, think.
Yeah,
Guess
yeah,
what? You only need 10% of those stupid buttons anyways.
Yeah.
It's super
'Cause I
rad.
think people want to think that the technology is going to help them somehow way more than it really is. You know what I mean? Really, you at the end of the day, you got to make the work, and you've got to do your job. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the
Alright.
change management comes in, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, don't get me started.
Whole other conversation. Whole other 5-hour podcast.
Leo, let's get you back for that.
Please.
I got seriously. It
So
did
great,
not
Leo.
disappoint.
Thank you.
Thank you. You got the baby over there. That's exactly it. But Leo, thanks again.
Yes, thank you.
Johnny boy,
Thank you, Leo.
for the use.
Jeff.
Always good to see you.
Likewise.
We'll catch you on the flip and
All
stay fresh. Give the
Give that
baby
kid
a
a hug, Leo.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Smash that like button and subscribe and tell your grandmas and grandpas to do it.